Recording started.
Talk show. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Communities Roundtable podcast. This is podcast number 521. My name is Eric Nielsen, and with me today, I have my co-host, Matt Langeth. Today is Wednesday, August 5th, 2020. What's going on, Matt? How you doing?
Hi, Eric. Good afternoon. It is yet another week in what is 2020. Personal note, HVAC construction has started. So by this time next week, I'm sure that things will be slightly cooler. But speaking of weather, how are things out in California? What's the color of the bay?
We are having a cold day today, and it's kind of breezy and only in the 60s. And the color of the bay is dark green with chop because it's cold, no sun, and a little bit of wind. It's supposed to pop back up into the 80s over the weekend, so we won't last long here. But we're getting a little bit of mild winter going on today, which is kind of interesting. So there you go. On the show today, we're going to be talking about SpringOne. SpringOne is Pivotal's online conference, which we acquired Pivotal, of course. So we're going to have a couple guys come in that were part of the Pivotal org. Now they're part of VMware. Nathaniel, I don't know how to say Nathaniel's last name. He'll tell
Schutta.
us. Schutta, Nathaniel Schutta, thanks. Senior technologist at VMware now. And Bob Brindley, product marketing manager. So we have Bob and Nathaniel here. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, glad to be on.
So we're going to talk about SpringOne, which I think everybody that's listening to this, if you're an IT practitioner, you're going to start to want to know about what's happening with us, VMware, Pivotal Cloud Native, and Spring, which is truly a true developer conference. So it's pretty cool. Me and Corey have been there before. So we're going to talk all about that today. There you have an event coming up. Their SpringOne conference will be hitting us September 22nd and 3rd, 2nd and 3rd. So you can register on springone.io. We'll talk about that in a bit. We're also going to talk to Corey Romero. So Corey Romero, hey, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Eric, how are you? vExpert kicked off some stuff for vExpert this week. Pretty excited. We kicked off the vExpert BU-led subprogram, which is the vExpert application modernization, right? So this is for current vExperts, and if you're not a current vExpert, you listen to this, and you want to be interested in these programs, you can go to vexpert.vmware.com and click the notify me when the applications open. And right when we open them up this year for 2021, we will ping you and let you know that the applications are open. So and those dates run from August 4th to August 18th is the application period. And then we start voting August 19th through September 2nd, and then we will announce on September 3rd.
All right, so this is for the subgroup Cloud Native Apps. What are you calling it again? Say that again.
It's called vExpert Application Modernization.
Application Modernization. Okay, you heard it here. So if you're interested in application modernization and you're vExpert, this is another subgroup. How many subgroups are we up to now?
This puts us at 8.
8 subgroups, which is really great because you got a couple thousand vExperts, and if you really look at it now, you're probably specializing, and you probably want to be in a subgroup so that you can be invited to the activities that are being run. So that's great, Corey. Another one on. Excited to see it. Are you still targeting for like 100 people in each of these subgroups?
Yes, yeah, we target to 100, 150.
Okay, on the chat, Graham mentions we should have a vExpert, non-vExpert subgroup. Like you're not a specialist in anything, but I think that's just a vExpert. That brings us back to the party conversation we had way back when John Troyer was running the vExpert program. We had the non-vExpert party, right? For people that didn't get invited to the exclusive party, we actually had a non-vExpert subgroup party. So it has been done. Okay, other key dates. Thanks, Corey. Great to have you here.
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. Again, VMworld, everybody knows VMworld's free this year. Go sign up. You can buy the $300 package if you want to have workshop labs with instructor-led labs. You can spend the $299 to go get that. There are other kind of things like meet experts. There are some press and analyst things. basically small subgroup environments. That $299 gets you access to that. Otherwise, there's a lot of community stuff that's going on that's also free. Brown Bag is happening the day before the event. So go register for VMworld, go to vmworld.com, register free, bring a friend, bring 2 friends. It's free, and go from there. Code Connect is also open. You can register for Code Connect. That's 2 days after VMworld. We're going to have hackathon. There are probably 40, 50 different sessions that are going to be live streamed. There's coding sessions. It's all live. There's no pre-recorded. So the sessions are going to be all engagement. We're running it on GitHub. So you will be able to go register on GitHub. And then the hackathon is going to be on GitHub. So look for Code Connect, follow code.vmware, or go to VMware Code and follow it on Twitter. We're announcing a lot of stuff there. That's happening October 1st and 2nd. You can go register for there. And then again, SpringOne, September 2nd and 3rd, SpringOne.io. Go there. And with that, we will transition to our guests and talk a little bit about SpringOne and what it is. So maybe we'll start with Nathaniel first. Nathaniel, we usually, because we're a community podcast, give us a couple-minute elevator pitch. Who are you? What have you done in your career? And what do you do today at VMware?
So the easiest way to describe me is architect as a service. So everything's as a service today. The simplest way to do it, I think, is just call me architect as a service. I will admit the first time someone called me that, I realized it might have been a compliment when I actually sounded the acronym out in my head and realized they may have had an alternative interpretation of what they were calling me, but to each their own. So I'm part of our advocacy group. And that basically means I go places. Well, I used to go places. Now we just sit in front of our webcams and broadcast to people. But yeah, we go around the world talking to people about various things in architecture, cloud native, Spring, etc. So we've got a bunch of experts on our team that spend a lot of time doing that.
All right. So Bob, same to you.
Well, I guess if we're going to use the as a service as a joke, I'm a booth Bob as a service.
Totally.
So I'm also in that advocacy team, and the role that I in normal times, to use the asterisks, I travel around to conventions around the world. So I went to both VMworlds last year in San Francisco and Barcelona, and many other events. And I just hang out at the booth and I talk to people about. At that point in time, it was what Pivotal was doing, but obviously now it would be what VMware Tanzu is doing. And so under these times of lockdown, I host Tanzu Tuesdays, which is every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific on a Twitch channel. And so we bring on different developer and kind of Kubernetes types of people to kind of say, hey, VMware is in the game of developing, and we have lots of great tools that can help with that, obviously Spring being one of them, and other various answers for Kubernetes. And so we bring in different various experts to include, Nate's been on the show, and several other people from our advocacy team, and then just other people in the kind of VMware world. And so I host that. And then we also have a SpringOne tour, which again, Nate and I used to do around the world. We would travel the world and do kind of 2-day events around Spring. And now we can't do that. So we host a 2-day event that's live every month. And so I have one of those coming up. Let me just grab that date real quick. Michael Manella will be talking data processing with Spring on August 19th and 20th, excuse me. So that's springonetour.io. So that's me in a nutshell.
All right, nice. SpringOneTour.io. Go check that out. Always good content. And I got to say, if I have a fourth monitor, that's what I'm going to have my fourth monitor do, is just sit and stream all the live content that's all over the place now. So
yes,
I'm enjoying that aspect of it. So before we move into SpringOne, just a couple points. I'll hit you, Nathaniel, first. Like, how do you become an evangelist? Like, did you actually write code at some point, or did you just graduate from college and just put on your evangelist hat, go, this is my career?
No, so that's a good point. I guess I didn't really give much of my own CV here. I've spent the vast majority of my career in sort of enterprise IT. I started obviously as a developer, did that for a long time, sort of transitioned into that architect, tech lead developer role. I think I've had the architect title at least a decade, but there's a lot of companies are very protective around that title. I know mine was at the time I was there. I actually had a weird title like solutions engineer for a while, because that was the title the engineering team could give to architects, because only architects were in the architect group and not everybody could report to the VP of architecture. Is very political. So I guess the way I get into it is a friend of mine was writing a book and asked me to co-author. And so I said, sure, why not? And that book did relatively well, at least for a technical book. It's always funny when people are like, oh, well, like, did you sell like 500,000 copies? It's like, yeah, tech books don't do that. I mean, they did. There were like 2 tech books that did, but the vast majority of them, not so much. And so we did some presenting around that, and that just kind of led one thing into another. I started doing more presentations at meetups and conferences and things like that. And see, I joined the pivotal VMware world. I guess I've been here 3.5 years. I guess the best way to describe it is that liaison between customers and R&D. I ended up moving into the advocacy area, and that worked out for me really well, because I love giving presentations. I love going around the world. I love the travel aspect of it. I like to do the writing. I think we have a great job, because we basically get to play with technology, learn it, and then go teach it to other people.
Right.
It's awesome. So I'm in a happy place.
Any projects with code? Like, do you get to actually write some code and actually have something compile once in a while?
Well, see, I'm an architect, so I just draw boxes and arrows and hand wave. A lot of the kind of coding we get to do typically is more proof of concept-y type things. Here's a demo, here's something we can teach off of. Now that said,
Is that me or is that him freezing?
I think that's him. I
Oh,
think
okay.
so I'll go to Bob next. Right?
Sure.
Land of COVID and Zoom and poor Comcast and everybody else is struggling.
Yes.
Especially middle of the day. Don't know what that's about.
Yeah.
So Bob, same question to you. Do you ever get to write any code? I have this joke that I tell that when you move into marketing, they like lobotomize half of your brain. And then if you become
Right.
a manager or a director, they take everything but that's all you get left. Do you ever get to do some hands-on?
I actually do not have a developer background. So I have a more of events background. So that's kind of how I came into it 5 years ago. Actually, the end of this month will be my 5-year anniversary. VMworld 2015 was my first event, and so yeah,
Takes a special person to live in the events land. Let me tell you, I did some events last year. I think I went to like 8 or 9 VMware Code events. We did Developer Week and some other places. And my hat's off to you, because it's a grind. You have to love it.
It is. And yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of corporate, particularly tech corporate, living in the Bay Area types of presentations and live stuff, recorded stuff. And so this was a world that I was familiar with, and I was doing a lot of just consulting. And then, someone at Pivotal at the time knew that I'd worked with them before. And so they're like, hey, why don't, we need somebody kind of full time over here. And I was like, that's great. My daughter had just been born, and so it really worked out financially to have a steady job, and I got to work from home when I'm not traveling. So all of that really just worked out nicely. And yeah, I mean, it can be a grind, but but just like Nate, I love to travel. I love our team. Our team is really special, and it was created that way on purpose, obviously, and kind of handpicked. And so the person in charge at the time did a really great job, and it continued under Tasha Eisenberg, our manager now. So it's great.
So let's talk SpringOne for a minute.
Yeah.
Who we should go. I guess we'll stay with you, Bob, since you're here. The history of SpringOne is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Me and Corey went to SpringOne way back in the day, right, and had a booth there. And it was really focused on Java, right, and the Spring APIs that were built up. Maybe we can talk a little history of SpringOne. How did it show up? What is it, kind of the arc of SpringOne, and where is it now?
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of the SpringOne is to really celebrate all things Spring, right? I don't remember exactly when Spring kind of became a mainstream thing. It's been it's been 10, almost 15. Yeah, it's been a while. And so I know when I first joined, it was still its own convention. and it happened in DC. I didn't actually go to that one for whatever reason, but I think it was called like SpringOne X or something like that. And I don't know if the X is for 10.
Yeah, it was right when Spring and Pivotal was merging, and they were
Right.
Pivotal had their own thing, and SpringOne had their own thing, and I think they merged the
So the next year after that was SpringOne Platform, which was the first merged. And I actually remember being around for the conversation with that. It was like with Josh Long. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is, but he's one of the main kind of advocates for Spring, and he lives in an airplane and travels 650,000 flight miles a year, going around talking to people around the world. And anyway, it was kind of like, hey, what do you think about adding the platform to it? He's like, no, just because he's such a Spring purist and whatnot. But
right.
but it worked out great because we were able to offer not only all the incredible Spring content, but then, hey, you're going to need to run it on something. And a platform, and you might as well look at the Pivotal platform.
Right, that's what I liked about Spring back in those days. It was the first thing that EMC owned it all, I guess, at the time.
Yep.
Or Dell bought it all, and it was a pure developer play, right? It was
Yep.
basically APIs sitting on top of Java to implement things. So it was the first time I'd seen in the EMC VMware days that, oh look, we actually have something that developers use, right?
Right. And so that's kind of what was nice about kind of getting transitioned back into VMware is Pat Gelsinger mentioned this when Pivotal was acquired. It was like under VMware, which Pivotal was born and created, it got spun out, and it really needed that kind of going away from home, getting out of the nest, and being able to grow and make its mistakes and learn and kind of advance itself to the point where VMware is like, we now need to expand our wholesale from the developer side all the way down to the infrastructure side. And so us being able to go away for about 6 years, do that, and then being brought back really helps to fill out the VMware story. And so it's kind of now just our plan to say, hey, VMware does developing too, and it's because of Pivotal and Bitnami and a couple other companies that have now been brought in to really fill out this kind of Tanzu map BU. And so anyway, it's exciting. It's great. It allows us to create more content and also figure out more acronyms.
It's all about the acronyms.
And so yeah, so we've now dropped the platform part. It's now, we had SpringOne platform for about 3 or 4 conventions, and then now we're back to just SpringOne, and it's 2 days of just nothing but all the best Spring. All the people that work on the Spring team, which are all incredible people, they're presenting. It's going to be like a regular virtual conference or a regular conference. We're going to have a main stage. We're going to have breakouts. There's 5 different tracks. So I know that's probably talking later on, but I'm just excited to kind of talk about the kind of what it looks like, because it's really exciting 2 days. And Nate and I will actually be emceeing a couple of the tracks ourselves. So.
Yeah, and I can tell you from being on the other side of the CFP for this one, there is a lot of great content, and it was incredibly difficult to have to sift through that. And we had to say no to an awful lot of very good talks, because even though it's virtual, you don't have unlimited time. It doesn't go well. I guess we did do that 24 hours of Spring back on the Equinox. That was pretty cool, But there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many hours you can ask somebody to hang around, and so we had a tough time kind of narrowing that down and getting it to these core talks. But I was kind of glancing over the schedule. I guess whatever the schedule isn't firmed yet, but all the tracks are out there. All the talks we've accepted are out there. There's a lot of great stuff. I think it's really going to be exciting to see how that all looks, and I think there's going to be something for everybody.
So
Bob, we talk about personas in marketing and whatnot. What would you say right now is the persona or the average attendee? Is it more, have you bridged the gap? Is it still a traditional developer that's attending the conference, or have you seen more of a mix of a traditional infrastructure admin that now has been attending?
I mean, go ahead, Nate. Yeah,
Well, I was going to say, obviously, because Spring is the main focus, developer would probably be kind of the primary persona for sure. But I was part of the architecture track, and so we have a very strong focus there. There's a strong focus on sort of the leadership side. How do you do the transformational bit of this as a manager, as more C-level? So it isn't it isn't a narrow focus on just developers and only developers. It certainly has a broader focus than that. The infrastructure piece, that's a good question. We certainly talk about kind of the cloud native aspects, cloud native platforms, et cetera. So I would say there's definitely going to be some things in there that are interesting. Obviously, Kubernetes will come up. Imagine that. So I think there's a pretty broad swath of topics, and the advantage of this being virtual too is you hop in, you watch a few, and then, oh, I got to go take care of this, then you come back, and so there's definitely opportunities there for people to find something that's interesting.
Yeah, I'd say like our current numbers, yeah, we're definitely developer heavy for sure. But as VMware is promising this Kubernetes on everything, that attention to what does that mean and how do we kind of climb up the stack a little bit, it becomes more important for everybody in the infrastructure world every day. And so, as Nate said, we have all these opportunities to kind of have presentations that'll bridge for those people to learn more about Kubernetes. What does that mean? Why do I now need to care about Kubernetes, and how is that affecting me day to day? And then how can I leverage that? And the other thing that's also of note is all these talks are going to happen over the 2 days, and they'll be virtual, and they'll be fun to watch live. And then if you miss one or you want it, you kind of have to choose. They're all going to be recorded, and they're all going to be posted online later, so you can go back and you can watch them on repeat ad nauseum, and just catch the ones you missed. And so yeah, our focus is really trying to let the world know that, hey, VMware is an infrastructure place, but we're now also a developer space, and we're also a platform space. And so it's not only teaching the developers that we now have, below the stack, but also the infrastructure, hey, we have up the stack. So there's a lot of kind of, especially this last year, the first half of the year was like figuring out what our product is, getting it out there, letting the people know, and it's still a little bit more of this evangelizing, just letting people in on the kind of change. I don't know if you can hear that in the background, but I have a dog making a lot.
Is that your dog snoring?
Yeah. I have a French
chats right now going, who's snoring?
Yeah, sorry. It's she's a French
we
bulldog.
There it is.
Yeah, and that's how she communicates, is by her noises. And so
Everybody's we're laughing at chat now, going, like, I called it. I said, I think it's a pet. Probably one of the guests have a pet, but it's not bouncing the needle, so I can't tell which one of it.
Yeah, sorry. I just kind of noticed myself. I'm like, man, she is really going at it right now. So anyway, coworker life. Am I right?
Am I right?
So I have a question, Matt. I'll take it. I'll do a question here, which is Spring pure developer, right? APIs. It's all based on Java, right? And then we have platform Kubernetes stuff coming in. And I went to the conference site and I was blown away how professional, cool it looks, right? It's dark black. It has nice little squares of all that. I love the layout of the site, by the way. But anyway, that's an aside.
No, we'll let the team know, because they're a great team, and any positive feedback they'd love to hear. So.
I'm used to VMworld, where we do kind of like happy white cloudy stuff, but you go to SpringOne, everybody that's listening to this should go check it out, springone.io. It's
a beautiful UI. It really is. It's clean, it's simple. It's whoever did this really was a UI centric developer. It's gorgeous for a conference site.
That's awesome. Thank you. We'll pass that along.
To my point, is like you have a great cloud native track. You have Spring, which is Java based. Are you guys getting into other, because platform is, Kubernetes, all that. Are you guys, and Java, it's fine. It's not long in the tooth, but it's not, obviously there's a lot of other developer technologies out there. Do you see us getting into other APIs besides just Java APIs when we're having pure developer play content?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there is some .NET stuff hiding in there as well. That's part of this. We have a product called Steel Toe, which is another open source framework that, I know I'm grossly oversimplifying, but essentially takes some of the Spring goodness and brings it to sort of the .NET community. I know there's at least, if memory serves, a couple of presentations that get into sort of how we partner with like the Azure folks, for instance, and
Right.
what that looks like. So there's certainly, it isn't just pure Java. I mean, obviously Spring is a Java framework, and that's, I don't know, at least two of the tracks are pretty focused on that, but I wouldn't say it's exclusively, just Java all the time.
I want to see you guys get into like a Python world, right? With, just like, give us a lot of, Python and what's MongoDB and that whole, that other layer of developer, because I think us coming underneath, right, with cloud native and Kubernetes and having Joe Beta, brings a lot of credibility to that. But I'm always worried that we're going to lose the core developers that actually engage with us as well if our APIs just standard. I guess Java's healthy. I think Spring is healthy, but I always look at what else we could do to attract some of those app builders versus where you come in at the very end where you're deploying, right? Or even not at the end anymore. That's the point of it, right? So
Yeah, I mean, so Spring, I think it's getting like 10 million downloads a month. Java is like 60% of enterprises develop in Java, so there's still a really strong foothold in that world. And like Nate said, .NET is definitely a player, and kind of at Pivotal, just to speak a little bit on that, we took kind of what our enterprise customers were working in, and then tried to figure out what's the best way to make tooling and ways of solving their problems. And so Spring and Spring Boot, especially the microservices being such a big conversation. And so then, Steel Toe became, as Nate said, the framework for .NET, and it's behind Spring Boot in some of its advancements, just because it hasn't been around as long. But they really do work hand in hand now, where the both teams, the Spring Boot and the Steel Toe, are going, okay, what is Spring pushing out, and how can Steel Toe work out with that as well. And so but yeah, I mean, the platform is agnostic, so you can put Python on there, Ruby and Go. I think the platform at one point in time was written in Go. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of play for other languages.
other language.
It's just
I
that
have
clearly this is the Spring conference, so it's not the Spring and others.
Hey, we got 2 whole days full of architecture stuff. I gotta talk about my people here too.
Now you're starting to be as a service right now.
As a service, that's me. Can I draw some boxes and lines for you?
That's a big piece. And I'm in developer communities, and I have Twitter, and they tag me, they know. So I've been seeing Spring Boot show up in my now, right? So maybe you can explain what that is, right? Because what is Spring Boot? And I think I figured it out. But
I mean, the thing that I find so cool about Spring Boot, the whole community, is just the fact that if there's something that can help make your life easier, it's probably there, And what I love about, so how does Josh phrase it? His second happiest place on the internet is
the first happiest place is production, and second is Spring.
Start.spring.io.
Start.spring.io.
And
that's right.
You basically go in and say, all right, so what does my app need? You go check, and then boom, here you go. Here's your starter kit. You got everything you need. All the right stuff is there, and you're up and running. And I think back to when I first started writing. I worked on this Java web app more years ago than I care to admit, and the amount of pain we had to go in around class paths and did we have this, did we have that? I mean, it prematurely grays your hair. All right. And to see how much easier it is now, it's almost like cheating. I remember a couple of years ago, just for kind of help us all learn a little bit, my team all built like a to-do app. And what really stood out to me as I was working on it is I actually had more JavaScript than I had Java, because Spring just gives you so much leverage that you can move quickly and have a whole lot of problems just solved. And I love that as an architect. I love that as a developer. The fact that it sort of makes the right thing to do, the easy thing to do, and there's some strong opinions there that are grounded, not in some sort of dogmatic approach, but in years and years and years of experience across lots and lots of projects with a lot of really smart people. And so I just, that's what I find so exciting about it, is it makes your life a lot easier.
And it's battle tested, right? Like Netflix uses Spring Boot and Spring Cloud and all. Like they could have created their own thing, but they chose, we're going all in on Spring, and so they are huge contributors to the Spring ecosystem. And so yeah, Spring Boot really is about the microservices. It's about just kind of getting into that, failing quickly, getting out of the monolith, and just making sure that, like Nate said, doing the right thing is the easy thing. And so it's really changed the game on how enterprises looked at developing. And like I said, kind of Netflix is its own advertisement for it. It's
Right.
its own, you know, we just go, oh, Netflix OSS is run on Spring. Okay, got it. Thanks. That's all I need to know.
Yeah, you look at all the projects that are under Spring Cloud, and it's kind of mind-boggling, frankly. But you just see all those things that are there, and just the leverage that gives you, to me, is an incredibly powerful thing.
Before Matt jumps in with a question, which I know he is, I just want to follow up. I go like, could you just give me the 1 minute elevator pitch? What is Spring Boot? Did I miss this? Like, it's a cloud app that hosts all the Spring APIs in a cloud service. So you just drop in.
Well, Josh could probably give you a better succinct description than I can, but basically what it boils down to is, here's how to get your Java project up and running, and makes it incredibly simple to add the things that you need and just allow it to work together, seamlessly.
Is it part of a cloud service where I deploy to?
No, it's not the deployment side of it, but
that's what, then that's why I was confused. Okay, got it. It's not I thought it was maybe a cloud deployment service that I could then.
It'll run anywhere. That's part of what makes Spring powerful as well, is, we're agnostic. That thing will run on any of the cloud providers, run it on-prem, the whole 9 yards. You can make the argument that Spring itself started as a response to JEE or J2E back in the day. And I would say it's one. I think that's fairly, maybe that's controversial in some places. I don't think it is, but I remember being at one large enterprise where we somehow managed to not do much Spring, at least in my part of the company. And I thought that was a little strange, but there was this really interesting transformation from, no, we have to have an app server. We have to have an EE app server, to, I think it was about 6 months later, if people aren't basing their apps on Spring Boot, then they need to come explain it to the chief architect why they're not. And it was just fascinating to see that switch happen once people realized what was there and the leverage it gave them. They're like, yeah, why are we bothering with this app server? So
cool. Matt.
So back to the conference for a second, gentlemen. If you were an attendee, is there any sessions that you were really looking forward to, or that you would want to be sitting in the audience in and take a peek at, or that you've had an opportunity to maybe preview as part of setting up a conference that you were like, wow, this was really something I want to jump in on?
That's Nate,
so hard. I see you smiling on that one. So why don't you
it's
take
hard.
That, and we'll have Bob follow up.
I'm always excited about anything we have that's like in a case study. So one of the things I'm always looking for is when we have either our clients or people who work directly with our clients, our labs folks, when they come in and say, hey, here's what we did, and here's what happened, and here's why this worked. And, that's the stuff that I get really excited about, quite frankly, is just to sort of see how people are doing this, in the real world, so to speak, and the impact it's having at companies large and small. To me, that's really, really exciting. It's so hard for me to say like which is the one or two that I'm really excited about. There are some great titles. I know Heckler's got one, Game of Streams, which I just like, okay, I'm a sucker for a Game of Thrones reference. But we've got some great presenters. I'm very excited to see some of the things we've got coming up. I know Spencer and Oleg are going to talk about RSocket and functions. That's going to be great. Again, I'm just kind of skimming here as I look across, and I'm gonna annoy somebody, by not mentioning something, but I don't know. I'd have a hard time, frankly, picking one or two out of here, to say this would be my must see. But my hope is that we've done a good enough job putting together these presentations that people are going to sit here and go, wait, there's two or three at the same time that I want to see, and I don't know which one to go to. And as Bob mentioned earlier, they're all going to end up on YouTube when this is all said and done. So don't feel like you should anguish a little bit, I guess, but don't worry, there'll be time later if we want to catch something there.
Very good. Very good. Switching gears because we have maybe 10 or 15 minutes left, depending on a late start today. The event, you've done previous events, we can't all just pretend that the world is the same as it was. So there's goods and bads. Why don't you tell me the pros of doing what you think is an online conference versus the cons? What's your favorite thing? What do you think this is? Obviously we could go everywhere, right? So that's kind of, everybody goes, wow, everybody can come. But
right, that's definitely the biggest pro is we can be so much bigger than we've been in the past. And I think about last year we had 4,000-ish or so in Austin.
Yep.
And yeah, that was awesome. Austin's great. We're talking about that before we started recording here. Great barbecue, great food. But the beauty here is for a lot of folks where maybe, hey, I can't afford to travel that far, or I don't have the budget for that, or my company won't let me travel. Well, that's gone. We don't have any travel excuses. So that to me is a huge pro. The downside of the virtual events is it's a lot harder to have that sort of adjacent possible happen where you bump into somebody in the lobby of the hotel, or you bump into somebody while you're grabbing a cup of coffee. So that part is unfortunate. Although I will admit, we're chatting a bit about this, and I didn't realize there's like a social track that's going to be a part of this. And I'm like, hey, that's really
Yeah.
cool. And I was
Yeah.
looking at it like, there's going to be yoga, and there's going to be dancing and cooking. We actually did a team cooking class. Was that 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? And it's like, all right, cool.
I think it's still going on, actually. I think...
Well, for Paul, it is for sure. They're still getting around that. So that is, I'm excited to see how we sort of pull some of that together. It does allow us to get some presenters we might not have otherwise as well. So we're not as limited by people who either their corporation can fly them in, or they've got the means to fly in, or so I think that is also another huge win here, is we can be a little more, I guess, diverse in who we're able to bring in from a presenter standpoint. So I'm excited about that too.
Bob, how are you organizing like chats real time? Are you recording? I know at VMworld we got some feedback that we're pre-recording everything, and then we're going to have like live question and answer. How are you guys laying out the event online this year?
So it's a mixture. I believe all the main stage stuff is pre-recorded. There's a couple, splattered?
A smattering?
Smattering, yeah, throughout that are going to be pre-recorded. But yeah, Slack will definitely be a way to communicate, and I'm just trying to make sure.
Any live coding sessions or any?
Oh, undoubtedly.
Definitely. Yeah, anything Josh Long, Mark Heckler, like you mentioned, Spencer Gibb and Oleg with the RSocket. There's gonna be a lot of live coding. I mean, that's what developers want to see. They want to get into the under the hood, and so yes, there's all that. And what's also nice, is the material can be then seen later as well. So it's all run through the SpringOne.io website.
Okay.
So when you go on, register, you can watch these things without registering. I think like the main stage and a couple of things, but you can't interact if you don't register, because then they send you the links on how to, how to get into the Slack channel for that particular talk, and how you can kind of interact with the community. And back to even that social track that Nate was mentioning. So we have 5 technical tracks and then one social track. So if you just want to like step away virtually and do a yoga class, or listen to music, or do a cooking class, we also have Speechless. We worked with that company before. They're going to be doing an hour-long PowerPoint presentation. It's an improv show. But we do PowerPoint presentations for our lives all the time, and so let's watch somebody make one up on the fly and not know about the slides and not know the topic, and it's they're bringing in professional comedians, and so that'll be a lot of fun to watch. And just but again, again, the communication is all through Slack. So register is very important. So register at springone.io, and that way you'll get updated on all the ways to really interact and kind of enjoy the 100%.
I noticed both of you have like the same spring shirt on, right? Like,
swear to God, we didn't coordinate that.
I know you only have 2 different sizes of that shirt, and you just keep wearing them. On your shower day, make sure you pick up some shirts.
Yep.
I'm just joking, but at the same time, like, I know for VMware, for the code thing, we're going to put a shirt on our VMware store. So we have a store, and it's not hard to put, like, you design a shirt, you put it on there. People have to buy it just because that way it covers their shipping, because none of us have a way to sit around and ship 1,000 shirts, right? So I
haven't heard anything about swag for this.
Yeah, I'm not
and
sure.
That's been something we've been very proud of. Like, we were of the first through the socks, and
way to do it. VMware has a store, and it didn't take long. It only took us a couple weeks to put a shirt up, get a shirt that they can then put there, and then they don't print them until people buy them, so you don't even have to put any money down. And so you guys might but that gets back to the how do you create community, right? Like, because the shirt is really about, you guys having the same shirt, being in that community. And I would say it sounds like you're having a social time. Maybe we can get some shirts out there. How big is the Spring community? Like, do people actually, are people proud of being part of the Spring community?
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
Ravenous. Yeah, they're diehards.
It's huge. I mean, I don't know if it's hundreds of thousands or millions, but I mean, it is not a small number.
And I mean, to your point, I will check in. That's a question we didn't ask our kind of head person that we were talking to before, but I would assume that there's something planned. I also know, just to kind of jump back, we did this last year where we had some organizations that we worked with, that we went swagless,
Right.
and all that money was donated to 4 different organizations, and then you could also individually choose. And so we have some tracks that are specifically geared towards kind of just learning more about
Good things that you can do.
social justices and workplace and good things. And yeah, exactly. So that's also very exciting, and something that that this event, Spring, like I said, SpringOne, has been very passionate about creating.
Well,
I can't say enough nice things about the Spring community. It's there's some technologies where there's like a certain amount of hazing that seems to happen before you're sort of accepted, and I've never seen that in the Spring community. I mean, maybe there's been isolated incidences, but it's just such a welcoming group of people. I mean, I've asked some very dumb questions, and I've never had anybody razz me about it, and so to me that's one of the things I adore.
To your face.
Well, that's fair. I mean, I don't know what they're saying when I'm not around. Probably I don't want to know. But no, it's such a great group of people. There's no getting around. I mean, that's the thing I probably miss most about not being on the road, is the fact that we normally get a chance to hang out with Dr. Dave and everybody else when we're out and about. And there's just such a bunch of good people. And I think that's what I always appreciate about we do these 2-day events. This is the SpringOne tour, and you just get to see in these various cities where there's like several hundred people that show up on this random day to hang out with us. It's like cool, or in a couple cases thousands. It's like, oh wow, neat.
Yeah, the engineering community is also a bit kind of slightly different than the IT guys, are like what they do and how geeky they are. It's a level higher of geekness for sure. But that's cool that they don't haze, or they're open. That was going to be my question. Like, if we got IT practitioners and all the V experts and everybody that listens to this podcast, we get a couple thousand downloads a week here. How open are they? If they show up over on SpringOne, how will they feel? Will the developers make fun of the IT guys for showing up?
No, not at all. I don't think that. It's just not part of the vibe, and it's one of the things again that I love about this community.
Hug, right?
I would. Well, I mean, if we saw you in person, we'd give you. Although I don't know, COVID, is it too soon? Too soon for a big hug? Maybe, I don't know.
No, but yeah, I mean, honestly, they're so passionate about it, that they just, anybody who wants to listen, they want to talk about it. So, that's kind of the nice thing. And again, I personally, and again, I already told you my background. I'm not a developer. That's not my, but I still get welcomed, and obviously learn a lot every time I go to these events. And so there's never been any kind of backlash or calling me a noob or kind of that kind of stuff. So it's fun.
You heard it here. They're open. They'll give you geeky elbow bumps and high fives on your Zoom chat.
That's right.
Chat, all that. Go check it out. We're coming up at the top of the hour. Nathaniel, are you on Twitter? How do people follow you? We'll do a shout out to you. Catch your followers.
Yeah, I'm at NT Schutta. So my first initial, middle initial, my last name is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
SCHUTTA.
Yep. And same thing, ntschutta.io is my not so up to date website. Since we're not traveling, I haven't bothered to put new things on there. But yeah, you can find me lots of places. I do a lot of webinars. I do a lot of presentations. We're doing a lot of virtual events. I actually just had a couple people ping me today about some stuff in October. So, there's lots of chances to see us. As Bob mentioned, we've got the Tanzu Tuesdays. We've got the SpringOne tour events that we're doing virtually now. So we're quite visible.
Perfect. Any app, anywhere. This is a great way to learn the story. And Bob, same thing to you. Are you on Twitter?
I am on the Twitters, Bob _Brindley. And so, yeah, it's just fun to kind of, again, engage with whoever wants to learn about what, we're doing in the Spring community and the Tanzu and just VMware in general. I mean, it's been a personally, a great transition over into the VM world, mainly because we were kind of like the stepbrother anyway. We were, like I said, we were born inside. We kind of went out and went on our own, and then prodigal son, we came back, and so we've been a part of the family the whole time.
All your kids come back and live with you because
right.
they all have to come together.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought of that analogy and thought, I don't know, maybe that's not the best analogy for us to talk about.
As someone who did that, I actually have a great relationship with my folks because I was an adult with them, and so now we can like engage each other as adults as opposed to when I left for college and blah blah blah.
Having 4 kids, I love them. They come back. We actually have 2 of them back from college now that are hanging out. I'm going to go back, and one of them's working at Facebook, and he's sucking up my bandwidth at every day. Community's great. Go check it out. SpringOne. What is the URL again? I'm looking for
SpringOne.io.
SpringOne.io.
SpringOne.io. Matt, before we leave you, the V Barbecue Report. Tony Foster. I know you've been waiting patiently, and you got a good report. What'd you do this weekend for barbecue?
So this weekend for barbecue, I did steak and eggs on the grill.
Oh, wow. That sounds so good.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Nice. And I heard
I did it a couple of different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a cast iron skillet and did eggs in the grill. That turned out great. And then I cooked my steak. When I flipped it, cracked the egg and put it on top to let it cook, close the lid. That turned out really good.
Yeah.
All right.
If you want to come join our team, I think you'd fit right in. Just gonna say.
That sounds good. That sounds good. I heard you did some peaches as well, or at least you told me you did some peaches. Maybe
I did do some peaches as well.
Grilled peaches.
Just split them in half. A little bit of cinnamon and raw sugar, and a little pat of butter in the center of each, and just let them cook. Turned out phenomenal.
Yeah, you put butter on a lot of things. It's gonna be great. But yes, the grilled peach is an unsung hero.
Makes everything better.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's at the top of the hour, so thanks a lot to everybody. Sorry we got a little bit of a late start. Always COVID network issues going on. We'll be back again next week. Next week, we are going to be talking about Hands-On Labs and what's going to be happening with the VMworld Virtual Conference with Hands-On Labs. So come back next week. And in the meantime, have a great week, everybody. Thanks for being here, and enjoy some barbecue over the weekend. You only live once. Take care.